A land of endless night, a world with no babies, and a colony on Mars that may not even be real. No matter where you end up, these sci-fi futures aren't places you'd want to call home.
Without further ado, it's time to start running!
The police state of the Running Man is supported by fascist power and a government-sponsored distraction. Civilian uprisings are violently tamped down, and if scapegoats are necessary, they'll come from the remaining sympathetic members of the police and military. That's what happens to Ben Richards in the opening minutes of this great cheeseball movie, and it's only because he's Arnold Schwarzenegger that he's able to survive the deadly gladiator game he's pressured to play. The Stephen King book the film is based on is even crueler. People are dying from pollution, and the hardiest are volunteering for nationwide murder games just to scrape up some cash. Revolution is tough, but at least the movie makes a good push. The reality of living in a world like this? We'd be sick, desperate, and running neighborhood gambling rings just to get enough money to buy crappy food. The Running Man is too close to reality as it is. Let's try to make sure it doesn't get any closer. Cyberpunk is often about individuality thriving within the concrete structures of society. Body modification is a new method of self-expression, a technological evolution that stretches our capabilities, even as authority uses it to suppress. Ghost in the Shell is about all of that and more. Its sleek chrome future sees us inhabiting upgraded cyborg bodies if we choose. That sounds pretty cool, even considering the dangers. Of course, the new police state is more sprawling than ever, and hackers are capable of invading and destroying our rewired minds. Needless to say, that coolness factor would probably wear off quickly for most of us. Major Kusanagi isn't a standard cyborg. She's rocking a top-of-the-line bod, a Megatech Class A. That's far out of reach for most people. The average person can barely afford a lower-class body, even though body mods and upgrades are much more common. We might get a handful of upgrades subsidized by our employers, like Bato's cybernetic eyes, but it's not a great feeling knowing that your boss controls your vision. This vision of Japan is still rad as hell though, so much so you might think the risks could be worth it, assuming that your upgrades remain under warranty. Gattaca is a gorgeous film about how much life in the deceptively beautiful future blows. It blends classism and eugenics into something both callous and as socially relevant as the evening news. Here, the genetically engineered will always get first crack at the best of everything, despite laws meant to prevent discrimination against the naturally, and therefore imperfectly, conceived. These so-called invalids get the less desirable jobs and the crummier housing. While Ethan Hawke's idealistic invalid, Vincent, overcomes countless obstacles to achieve his dream of becoming an astronaut, that's not realistic for pretty much anyone else. Surviving in this soulless IKEA display would be pretty easy if you were perfect, but most of us today wouldn't even be allowed to be born here. Our smallest flaws would derail any chance we had for a comfortable life, and so many of the people that we love would be tossed aside as mistakes. That's breathtakingly awful to imagine. The world of Blade Runner is neon-lit and full of sin. The horizon is marred with digital billboards and corporate towers built like ancient monuments. New opportunities are available in the outer colonies, far from the boundaries of Earth's atmosphere. That sounds pretty cool, and it looks like it too. It's hard to fault anyone for wanting to try to make a life there at first glance. But beyond the smog and the near-eternal night is a world ravaged by ecological disaster. Animals have died out almost entirely, leaving people with synthetic creatures to fill the void.
Do you like our owl?
It's artificial?
Of course it is.
Animals aren't the only artificial beings here. The outer colonies allow replicants, disposable synthetic humans meant for violent jobs and sex work. They're not allowed on Earth, though, which is why it's Rick Deckard's job to track them down. It's possible to survive in the world of Blade Runner, even thrive, if you're comfortable with technology or the cutthroat underworld. The outer colonies are tantalizing as well. That is, if you can afford them. No matter which way you put it, this world is a wreck that almost certainly can't be fixed. Yet, it could still be loved, and at least humanity matters here, even if you're not really human at all. Win the dice roll and you could have an amazing life up on the Taurus ring of Elysium, a paradise based off of a real NASA prototype a think tank proposed in the 70s. Neil Blomkamp's Elysium presents a perfect Earth colony of luxury with all our needs tended to and our health cared for from the comfort of our designer medbeds. Unfortunately, the dice are loaded, and our future selves are vastly more likely to be born in the sprawling mega slums that make up the new Earth. If you're not connected to the wealthy and powerful, you might end up like Max DaCosta, going to work for beans in unsafe facilities, strung along by the lie that you could earn your way up to the stars. That's all too real in America today. But in the future of Elysium, at least the forgotten Earthbound are working together. Life may be hell, but we'll get through it if we have each other. Dark City draws from the best parts of the Blade Runner aesthetic and adds smoky rooms and hard-boiled mystery to boot. Like its predecessor, it feels like it's always nighttime, but in this unnamed city, it actually is. Time stops every midnight, things change in strange ways from day to day, and the trains never run to the sunny beach advertised on every block. Trying to live here is an actual nightmare. You're always vaguely unsure about your reality, and nothing about your life is going to feel stable for long. In Dark City, life is a literal rat race. We're lab animals, used by the alien strangers to unlock the riddle of their long-term survival. There's only one glimmer of hope, and that's John Murdoch, who achieves what his captors desire and turns their powers back onto themselves. Yet, humanity is still stranded in this frozen place, and although the return of daylight is welcome, there are no guarantees that our new boss won't gradually become the same as our old eldritch bosses. Either way, we're never going back home to Earth. The world of Children of Men is ready to fail. The complete lack of any human births for the past 18 years has made the entirely adult population disdainful and hopeless. The elderly and the infirmed of England are incentivized to use the quietus, a formal, painful method of suicide that eases the resource strain on the country. Immigrants, meanwhile, are met with systemic violence, and terrorism has reached an all-time high. Our beloved fur babies are our only viable replacements for human ones, as we indulge in vices to cope with the imminent end of us all.
As the sound of the playgrounds faded, the despair set in.
We don't see much of what the rest of the world is dealing with as we follow Theo Ferrone and the pro-immigrant faction that's hiding the first pregnant woman in decades. However, the doleful cinematography and the distorted politics of the United Kingdom leave us with clues. The Earth no longer wants us, making this dystopia one we should never want to live in, if for no other reason but to respect that decision. Resource scarcity and existential depression feel too real today, and there's little comfort to be found even if we were to try to live in this broken version of London. Ah, the ultimate evolution of capitalism, conquering space at the behest of a corporatized government. Boy, it's a good thing today's billionaires don't have these same ambitions. In 1990's Total Recall, a shadowy agency controls much of our spacefaring civilization. We've colonized Mars, and its governor doesn't want anything to interfere with his profitable mining operation. Earth seems like it's returned to having a thriving middle class, but our only proof of that isn't reliable. Douglas Quaid lives a great life on a construction worker's salary. Or does he? It's a bit of a mystery, as we never fully learn the truth about him. However, one thing that is for certain, if you're on Mars, unless you're buddies with Cohagen, you're probably living among the impoverished Martians. Don't be fooled by the promise of a cool new mutation either. An extra breast sounds fun until you've got to go bra shopping, and that's the nicest mutation we see. Simply put, Total Recall's reality is a crushing surveillance state where people are treated as disposable. Even the newly liberated Mars, seen at the end, is guaranteed to undergo decades of issues and turbulence. The thing about some doomsday preppers is that they always think they're going to be the ones to survive the collapse of society and come out of it like kings. Mad Max is a good lesson about how you're far more likely to end up as roadkill. In a society where it's every person for themselves, and there are few reliable methods of farming or obtaining clean water, death is fast and merciless. Society hasn't completely collapsed in the first Mad Max, but it's clear the world is as irreparably damaged as Max's psyche by the end. 2 sequels show the world in an even worse state, featuring wars over gas and small towns led by eccentric tyrants. Fury Road depicts the only way to survive in a dead world like this. Find the ones you can trust and fight for them to keep the dream alive. Here, Max finds himself among the women, who are usually disregarded in these post-apocalyptic scenarios. With them, there's a new message about nurturing those around you in even the most difficult times.
Where we might be able to, together, come across some kind of redemption.
Should fate lead you to Mega City 1, just make a beeline for the irradiated wasteland and get it over with. Life here sucks. Good luck getting into one of the overcrowded high-rise mini-cities. The rent is probably more than anyone can pay, putting millions at the mercy of the landlords. And your landlord is probably running designer drugs out of the penthouse, which means a judge is probably going to show up and consider you an accomplice because you didn't blow the whistle.
If you do not comply, the sentence is death.
Sure, Judge Dredd is a high-functioning robot of a man with a sense of ethics and a single shred of mercy, but corruption runs rampant among his colleagues. A judge you can trust is as easy to find as Santa Claus. The world building of this movie isn't clear in how it compares to its comic book counterpart, but there's nothing to say that the nightmarish Judge Death doesn't exist in the movie version as well. Don't come here. If you wind up here, leave. And if you can't leave, good luck. You'll need it. At no point should anyone volunteer to live in one of Cormac McCarthy's worlds. While many of his books feel post-apocalyptic despite their historical settings, like the bleak Blood Meridian, The Road goes all in on a dystopian future. The reasons why this Earth is shattered are beyond the knowledge of one man and his son, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter, except in the sense that there's no redemption for either it or them. Cannibalism is common in this hellscape, as there's little left to scavenge. It feels too innocent and too improbable to bet on the kindness of others. And even though the boy is left in the hands of a self-proclaimed good guy in the end, we can't know for sure if that's true.
How do I know you're one of the good guys?
You don't. You'll just have to take a shot.
The chances of long-term survival in this world are slim to none, as you have only yourself, your wits, and your resources. But in McCarthy's dead-end world, even those won't save you. They'll only prolong your suffering. The Road is depressing to the max, and it's the clearest example yet of a dystopian world that no one should ever yearn for.